What is up, you guys? Welcome back to Twink Revolution, and what a scary intro we just had.
That was terrifying. I'm very afraid. I hope you've got somebody to hold close and comfort you through this difficult time, because you're in for a very scary Halloween episode.
Yeah, we have a Halloween-ish special for the spooky season lovers out there.
And very appropriately, PG&E, the utility that covers most of Northern California, has decided to set the state on fire.
Yeah, and shut down like thousands of people's power.
Yeah, so candles and forest fires that look like scenes of hell are just very on point. It sort of feels very on theme for us, a Halloween episode for us. They haven't killed anyone yet this time, I think.
No.
Yeah, last time they did a power shut-off, they turned off somebody's medical device. That's like last time, like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they did it again?
Yeah, they've turned off the power again this time. Yeah, so basically because they have been paying out massive executive bonuses and generating record profits for decades, they have not been maintaining the power lines, which in California, which is basically just a giant tinderbox. They've managed to create a situation where whenever there's sort of high winds and I guess dry conditions, the power lines just blow over and set shit on fire. Yeah. Which ended up burning down the town of Paradise, California, and killing like 200-ish people last year.
Yeah, I saw an article talking about how they refused to pay the extra money to bury the cable lines, which would have solved this whole issue.
Oh, God, no. They paid $11 million of bonuses last week, I think, or the week before when they announced that they were doing these giant shutoffs. And honestly, you don't pay $11 million in executive bonuses if you're busy, like, maintaining your power lines or burying them. Yeah. Don't do that shit. Yeah. God.
But it gets even better. I mean, I just saw an article showing videos of prison laborers being paid pennies on the time, like an hour, like basically fighting forest fires. So they have no union rights. They're basically being exploited to fight out fires and basically working slave wages. Pretty scary and spooky.
Yes, they are exempted from California's minimum wage laws, which are fairly robust. I mean, California minimum wage is what, like $13.50 at the moment, I think, per hour. And it should be higher, but at least to the extent that sort of could be a dignified living wage. People who are imprisoned in California are given the option to instead earn cents per hour, putting their lives on the line fighting forest fires. And then, of course, when released, they are not eligible to be considered to join, say, the fire service or vote or do anything kind of you might want to do as a dignified human being. So
plus, if they see horrifying things like burn victims and stuff, they don't get mental health care afterwards because they're in federal or they're in state prisons, which are basically being austeritized. And is that a word? Austerity?
I think it is now.
Okay, well, we made it a word. But the austerity measures.
It's spooky season. Any word goes.
Being enacted in prison, so it's cutting all the benefits, and that includes like adequate health care, which should be a bare minimum for people deprived of their full lives.
Yeah, so because it is Halloween in just 2 short days, we've been, obviously subjected to an entire month worth of costume parties, of really fun events where you sort of gathered, because Halloween, if you think about it, is a month-long event in the gay community. It's
basically gay Christmas.
It is. Gay Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa all in one.
Yeah, I mean, it's what gays love most. Doing drugs or drinking and wearing slutty costumes.
Yeah, which we call February. Yeah. But also Halloween, it turns out to be an important time in the gay community. And so we've decided to sort of dedicate this episode to celebrating some of the highlights and offering maybe some gentle advice. And most especially, or what I'm most excited about, is we've got a special gay erotic story, short story for Halloween, a very scary story coming up later in the episode.
Yeah.
But first, what is the main thing you need to worry about at Halloween as a gay man, Sam?
Wearing the right costume.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And thankfully, Good Housekeeping magazine has offered some do's and don'ts for this spooky season.
So we'll give you our thoughts and let you know if it's hot or not,
Yes, the article is called 15 Offensive Halloween Costumes That Shouldn't Exist by Sam Escobar and Marcy Robin.
Is he related to Pablo Escobar, the cocaine kingpin?
I hope so. So this was published October 17th, 2019, which means, honestly, if you were a gay man, you might have already been subjected to at least 17 days worth of costumes, and you could have been getting it wrong this entire time.
Yeah, so we'll let you know if you're getting it wrong. Get a gay opinion.
Yeah,
so number one
find out if you're canceled.
is a Holocaust victim. So this outfit is a little girl dressed up as Anne Frank.
Quite fetchingly, I must say.
Yeah.
Like it's a good rendition.
She's like a messenger, like little girl, like.
Yeah, we're going to post this article in the episode description as well. So if you want to follow along and sort of give us your takes, please do. So it's a child's 1940s girl costume is I think how it's offered on some online stores because it was pulled off the shelves.
Yeah, I got really big flack last year. I'm just wondering, when is the pink triangle outfits for the gay Holocaust victims?
Yeah, you might have to make that at home. I don't know if you can buy one of those in the store yet, but
I don't think we're being adequately provided for by the free market.
Yeah, representation matters. It apparently this one generated some controversy. I honestly think it's kind of, given that this is definitely a child's costume. You have to imagine we're all forced to read The Diary of Anne Frank in school, right? Were you made to read it?
That. I read a bunch of Holocaust books, but never.
Yeah, Mein Kampf doesn't count, Sam. We are, well, at least I was made to read it. In probably my first years of high school.
Yeah,
and I can't see why you wouldn't, if you were sort of very taken by this and thought this was a sort of an influential character in your life. Why wouldn't you want to dress up as somebody you admire? I think I don't think this one is in as bad taste as people imagine. It's not dead Anne Frank, to be clear. This is living 1940s girl costume, and it looks good. Like she looks good.
Yeah,
this is prior to I think being.
So you would rank it as hot.
I think this is hot, and also it's continued to offer. Sorry, wait. The other thing they called it is World War II evacuee girl, which I noticed in the photo. Actually, the girl has the tag on it. This is not a Holocaust victim at all. Good Housekeeping is fucked up. This is actually a World War II evacuee child because when at the outbreak of World War II, a lot of children were evacuated to the countryside.
Anne Frank didn't even evacuate. She hid in a back room in Amsterdam and then got found and was killed. So this isn't even Anne Frank anymore.
Yes, famously, did not evacuate. Okay, well, this is nonsensical. Fuck you, Good Housekeeping. This is bad housekeeping to me.
Number 2 says, anything involving blackface. And I guess that also includes any costume inspired by Justin Trudeau, which is a little disappointing. What if I wanted to be Justin Trudeau?
Yes, winner of the last Canadian election, Justin Trudeau. What if I'm just trying to represent a wonderful Canadian folk hero? This is probably good advice, in fairness. It is really, really tacky if you spend, say, 30 or 40 years of your professional career pretending to be another race. That's bad form. Do not do it. And it should probably disqualify you from, say, the presidency if you've spent your time doing this.
Yeah, this one's definitely not hot. If you want to do color your face, be like an Oompa Loompa or be like Violet Beauregard from, they're all Willy Wonka references, I guess.
Do a Donald Trump one.
Do a Donald Trump one.
You can be Orange Bad Cheeto Man.
Just don't be a racist piece of shit. That's definitely not sexy, and no one wants to have sex with racists.
True.
Yeah.
Do not fuck racists.
The next one, number 3, is transphobic costumes. And this one's kind of referring to, I'm not going to use the word, but a slur for transgender
hard
granny.
Slur.
But it was later rebranded as a Mrs. Doubtfire-inspired look.
Oh.
So...
Aren't we all inspired by that? Yeah.
I think if you're trying to mock transgender people, probably not. But if it's just broadly anyone who's cross-dressing, you're probably fine. Because that includes drag or little boys who have women idols dress up as girls. And that could be according to these people, like transphobic.
Yeah, I don't think transphobia is the main problem with this particular costume. It is a dowdy grandmother look, and I don't think there's no implication this is a transgender grandmother. This is cross dressing for amusement, which really falls into the category of drag, I guess, in some sense.
I mean, gay men dress up in, like, women outfits. I saw so many Harley Quinns this year. For one, get creative, stop doing the same outfit.
Yes.
But also, like, that's not transphobic to dress up as, like, a superhero or, like, a woman or celebrity, whatever. That's not your gender. Like,
no, suggesting that it's the worst thing you could possibly do would be to be a woman is kind of telling on yourself in this one.
They did also mention one that was a Caitlyn Jenner costume, and I looked it up. That's probably a no-go. I wouldn't do that.
Maybe,
For one,
maybe avoid.
It's just not sexy in general. No one wants to fuck Caitlyn Jenner, but...
Well, it's actually transphobic if you don't want to fuck Caitlyn Jenner. We are required to fuck Caitlyn Jenner, Sam.
I'm guilty, I guess.
Yes, no, you are definitely a transphobe.
Well, the next one is a refugee. I would have never even thought of this as a costume.
Yeah, that's a weird one.
Is this something people are actually doing? Like...
Well, I'm just trying to think, like, famous refugees, you might want to dress up as. I mean, they don't have to be, like, refugees from, say, a recent crisis. There's many.
I did see recently an article, I think it was, like, Pink News or something, of, like, a Canadian gay couple, and one dresses as an ICE agent, and the other as, like, a stereotypical, like, Mexican man. And they got a lot of flack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's what you're doing...
Well, I mean, I don't think I'm spoiling anything to say this is not one that is on the list, and therefore, but we saw a lot lot cops.
Yeah, don't
every
be a cop.
Every year there's fucking a lot of cops.
No, they're not sexy. Be a
It's not sexy.
Be a firefighter.
Be a firefighter.
Be an EMT. Like, those are the real people you want to
be
fuck.
a Politburo official, like a minor party bureaucrat in the Communist Party. These are all sexy costumes.
Yeah.
Being a fucking policeman or an ICE agent or an FBI agent, even if you think you might be a female body inspector, it is not. It's not sexy or good.
No.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, so...
Refugee is a no-go to me.
Don't be a refugee.
Mostly because, like, it's... How do you do that costume without falling back on some pretty uncomfortable racial stereotypes or something? I like, put it this way, if I turn up kind of just looking a little bedraggled and as though the world has mistreated me, sort of being a refugee from the sort of, Kosovo in the 90s, it's not going to... Like, people are not going to get it.
Yeah.
Your costume should be quite literal, I think, is important.
It should be, like, recognizable on the spot.
Yeah.
Or at least, like, once you say it, you're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. As opposed to, like, you're just a person who, like, was going about their life and has been forced to evacuate their home. It's not really impressing anybody.
So the next one is body shaming and objectifying costumes.
Objectifying, dangerous.
Yeah, this one's a guy, like, on the shoulders of, like, some plus size woman with, like, nipple tassels and a G-string. But the woman's fake. It's like a costume woman.
Yes. I mean, objectifying, if you want to talk about objectifying, if you follow us on Instagram, you'll have seen what we were wearing for Halloween.
Yeah.
And that was certainly, there was some objectification going on there. And, I think to the extent that the object-subject distinction is not one I feel the need to preserve at Halloween. I think dress, be as sexy as you want. But certainly I don't think that's what this is trying to get at. But body shaming, I mean, I'm not going to police this particular behavior.
No.
I think if you're...
I just don't know where the cutoff is. Like, what if I wear, like, a sumo wrestler outfit or, like, a fat suit? Like,
well, I mean, we did see a really good one, which was it's Violet Beauregard, right, from Willy Wonka, blown up as a blueberry. Yeah. It was an inflatable costume, and it looked spectacular. But, like, theoretically, that could be shaming blueberry-shaped people, or people who are blueberry proportioned.
But also,
which, that's body shaming, and I'm fine with it.
Yeah, but what about, like, also, like, objectifying men? Like, is that okay? Because
absolutely is.
implied.
I insist on it, actually.
Yeah, just implied women and.
Yeah, no, I'm going to be offended if you don't objectify me at least a little bit. I put a lot of effort into my costume, and I demand to be objectified in this way.
I mean, that's why you dress sexy. No one's dressing sexy for themselves. They're dressing sexy to, like, show off. Because it's, like, the one time a year. So number 6, cultural stereotypes. So this was, like, a little, like, kid who's wearing, like, some Moana costume. I've never seen Moana, so I don't know what the fuck he is. But,
well, it's. I mean, it is an approximation of. I don't want to say Native Hawaiian. It's some sort of vaguely Polynesian outfit. There's a grass or leaf skirt, and the upper half is sort of covered with a shirt that is brown skin colored and covered in tribal tattoos. Mm-hmm. And I think the legs are as well. Actually, yeah. So it's like. Theoretically, you're dressing up as Disney, so, like, maybe talk about the giant fucking corporation that is selling these costumes rather than, like, don't go out and shame a child who is 7 years old and wearing their favorite Moana costume. They don't know any better, and they were sold it by a giant corporation that has made hundreds of millions of dollars off this particular form of maybe bad taste. Yeah. So I'm going to call this a borderline look whereby if the child wearing it, leave them the fuck alone. Not the time to have the conversation. Mm-hmm. If they're not wearing it, then fuck them up.
So they also mentioned for cultural appropriation things like Native American headdresses and like kimonos and shit. And I swear to God, every single year in SF, I've seen some gay just wear like a full-on like Native American headdress, and it's like, what is wrong with you?
That's sexy, right? Like that's a sexy
totally
costume.
Sexy. It's not sexy. Yeah. It's just like, I feel like the bare minimum, you should know that's not a good outfit to wear. Like,
yeah, it's if only because it's cliche. I mean, surely there's all sorts of hideous aspects to it. I think the fixation on cultural appropriation as a catch-all for like why you don't wear a costume is a little lazy. Mm-hmm. There's better analysis you can do on that. But certainly, Native American headdress, just don't do it. Give it a miss.
I think for some of them, though, which are like considered like cultural, though, I could see it being okay. Like, we allow soldiers and stuff to be costumes. Like, what if you wanted to be like a samurai? Like,
you're appropriating soldier culture.
Yeah. Or like, I know I saw like a video where there was like a sexy kimono. Like, sure, I could see people being outside of like, what if it was just like a regular
kimono.
Yeah, like, I mean,
that seems
Asian
fine.
people don't give a shit. Like, there was a girl a few years ago who wore it to homecoming, and all of like China and Japan and stuff were like, we love this. Like, it was only like white people in the U.S. who were like triggered by it.
Yeah, there's a certain concern trolling aspect to some of these things. I think this particular concern is fine. Native American headdress, it's right out. But Moana costume, honestly, it's the problem is not the person wearing the costume. There's no intent behind this to
be offensive.
To be offensive or problematic.
It's just like a beloved TV character.
Yeah, like kids
if
don't know any better.
The depiction, where's the outrage towards the Disney movies? Like,
that would be the place to direct your complaint letters. I think.
So number 7 is being a terrorist. I think this is definitely hot. I want some like sexy gay ISIS members. Like, what's better than to like upset like radical terrorists than to like make a gay and sexy?
Yeah, arseless suicide bomber costume is hot.
I mean,
it's funny because they're sort of calling out like whether it's a member of ISIS or someone who's committed a horrifying mass shooting, we can all agree that's 100% a bad idea to dress up as a terrorist.
Yeah.
What if you're like Weather Underground? What if it's...
That's true.
What if it's sort of like sexy left-wing, Bader Meinhof gang or something?
The ALF.
Yeah.
Like,
these
they're
are...
sexy.
And these are perfectly acceptable costumes as far as I'm concerned. It also says, while we're at it, let's cross dictators like Hitler off the list too. So, no Evo Morales costumes, no Hugo Chavez, all the dictators. Remember the dangerous, evil dictators.
Yeah.
No Maduro, you just go, no dressing up as dictators, people.
No Lenin.
Yeah.
No, I think that's totally acceptable. Be a terrorist if you want.
Yeah, be a terrorist.
But make it sexy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just being lazy.
Yeah, you have to do something arch or interesting with it.
Yeah. The next one is zombie versions of recently deceased celebrities, and I think this is totally okay. I mean,
this is fine.
When Larry King dies, I want to be the sexy dead corpse of Larry King. I mean, he's almost a corpse already.
Yeah, I mean, for 364 days of the year, I dress up as sexy zombie Margaret Thatcher. I give it a miss on Halloween because it gives me other options. But like, I think, Henry Kissinger, fair game. He's not recently deceased, but he will be eventually. And dressing up as zombie Henry Kissinger, also known as Henry Kissinger, is fine.
Like what if I want to be like decapitated zombie Marie Antoinette?
Yes,
that's a totally okay costume.
Yeah, she's recently deceased. I mean,
recently.
I know. I personally think the idea that you sort of need to preserve the sensibilities of somebody you do not know, will never know. You won't know anybody they know.
They're dead. Who cares?
They're dead. You don't know that. You don't know them. It's not even a good taste issue at this point. It's just for example, I remember after Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, died, somebody turned up as dead Steve Irwin at a Halloween party one year. It was hilarious. It was genuinely funny. This is fine. Yeah. Good housekeeping. This is bad housekeeping. Tip.
Yeah, you're a celebrity. You should be parodied all the time.
Yes.
So next one, number 9, is an eating disorder, and it refers to some costume where it's basically like a skeleton dress with like a tape belt, and it's named anorexia.
Nice.
Yeah. I think they say the pun is not good. I think it's quite clever.
The pun is great. I mean, the pun is better than anything ever featured on RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
So, while it claims it trivializes eating disorders, which it might. I mean, it's not necessarily in good taste, but I don't think you need to knock the pun in order to critique this particular one.
Like, probably poor taste outfit, but funny pun. That's my conclusion.
Yeah. No, I think that I'm with you.
Number 10 is animal cruelty. So they refer to the dentist, was he a dentist that killed Cecil the lion? I'm a vegan, and I think this is totally okay. For one, you should make fun of like crazy people, but also like there's a lot of like animal cruelty outfits that are sexy, like a matador would bang, like like it's the most like body attractive like outfit.
You're a fan. I didn't know this about you, but okay, that makes sense.
Like they're bad people, but like sexy,
but it's hot. Okay,
I don't care.
And I think honestly, lion killer dentist Halloween costume is like, what is the point of Halloween costumes if not to be irreverent? And I am not claiming this is any sort of like brave stance of speaking truth to power, but this is a person, a reprehensible person doing reprehensible things, making fun of them by dressing up of them as them and rendering them ridiculous. Feels like a perfectly valid use of the actor dressing up to me. Like, what is wrong with this? There's nothing wrong with this.
They don't even they could have used like a butcher as the alpha, but that's not what they're referring to. It's only specific animal cruelty. So I kind of find as like a pseudo like concern trolling.
Yeah, well, it says this isn't a joking matter.
Yeah,
I mean, what's like, yes, it absolutely is. It is a joke because it's horrifying at root, and therefore we should make fun of it.
I'm gonna wear it just because they made it a big deal, and I'm a vegan for like forever. The next one is O.J. Simpson and Nicole Simpson. Probably pass.
Well, yeah, I mean, it claims a recency thing. Honestly, I think the objection to this one should be that this has not been a funny bit since the 90s.
No, it's so old. Like, who is doing this? Like, be creative.
This is, I mean, like Gen X bullshit.
Yeah.
So
like, be Rihanna and Chris Brown.
Exactly. Do something funny, at least current. I mean, if you're going to be sort of do like a slightly bad taste thing, then like, go with the current reference.
Be John and Kate plus 8 and have a bunch of like 8 baby dolls around you. Like, that's more relevant than this like O.J. Simpson, Nicole Simpson shit.
Yeah, that's. I mean, honestly, this is sort of on the same level as like going as the Unabomber.
Yeah,
it's not been a force for good or bad for a very long time.
It's a pass because it's outdated. Number 12, it's a mentally ill person, but they emphasize that it's just anyone wearing things that are associated with like institutionalization. So like a straitjacket, which has been part of like the horror genre forever. Like, oh, I'm a crazy psycho killer, like in a straitjacket. Like that's been in like horror and like haunted houses forever. So I think you're not really making fun of a mentally ill person. You're making fun of like a person who's like an actual crazy person who wants to like murder you. Like,
Yeah, it's a horror trope.
Yeah.
And also, if I can't make fun of mentally ill people in this way, then your child cannot dress up as Hillary Clinton.
yeah, because she's mentally ill.
Yeah. Did you see the bit where what is it? Dick Morris saying that she thought that God had chosen her to be president?
Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah. So
she's
once
hearing
again,
voices.
number 12, good housekeeping tips. Don't let your children dress up as Elizabeth Warren, as Hillary Clinton. Yeah, don't do none of those.
Yeah. Number 13 is sexual harassment, and it shows this guy wearing a flasher outfit.
Hilarious.
I think it's funny. I mean, it's not creative, but like, I don't think it's problematic.
It invokes the hashtag MeToo movement. It says these costumes are straight up insensitive, which is a yes, but getting back to what we were doing last Saturday for Halloween. I mean, definitely sexual harassment's a key part of gay culture. So don't erase us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Plus, people walk around naked in like the Castro all the time. So like, why are you insinuating showing off your body? It's just insinuating you want to be like sexual. And
Right,
just,
I think this is body shaming.
Yeah, canceled. Number 14 is a homeless person. So like people dressing up as like hobos and stuff. I mean that's probably...
This could be literary. This could be just a sort of Mark Twain character or something.
It's true.
But yeah, probably poor taste.
Yeah, poor taste.
Also, it's to the extent that like degradation and humiliation, if that's the angle you're going for, do it in a sexy way. Don't do it in a like the true horrors of late capitalism way.
Make fun of people with power, not the ones that most disenfranchised.
Right? I mean, I've already mentioned the Steve Irwin costume.
Yeah,
hilarious. To go with that one.
And the last one is just a national tragedy, and it's these two people dressed up in these homemade 9/11 tower outfits. For one, the costumes are quite creative.
Very well done, Twin Towers.
But also, like, they said never forget, and this is definitely not making me forget this Halloween when I'm, like, drunk in the streets being, like, slutty and, like, shit-faced.
Yeah, this is not the worst taste use of 9/11. That particular honor would be going to Rudy Giuliani. And so, he dressed up as Rudy Giuliani staring out upon the Twin Towers with two of your friends. That's a good costume.
Yeah. So speaking of gay celebrations, Pride festivals are still going on, and just this past week, Taiwan had its first ever Pride since they legalized same-sex marriage, which is the first Asian country to have same-sex marriage.
Pretty exciting.
Pretty cool. Apparently 20,000 people showed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought it was funny. There was a Pink News article that kind of went over it and like kind of the achievements of marriage equality. Turns out the government won't allow you to marry someone if they're from a country that doesn't recognize same-sex marriage. So lots of people actually can't get same-sex married because they're from other Asian countries.
Oh, interesting.
Which is like hilarious. And they also don't allow adoption for gay couples.
Well, I mean, the international marriage thing is interesting, right? Because like, if you think about in many places, the main thing that might force you to get married would be, we would like to live in the same country despite not being both citizens of that country.
Yeah. If you're Taiwanese, you can get married as long as someone's from a country where it's already recognized.
Yeah.
Or you're also Taiwanese.
Yeah.
So, like, I saw one case was, like, someone from, like, I think it was, like, Malaysia or something, and they couldn't marry them because it's not recognized in that country. But also, going into the article, apparently they did a referendum, which was pointless because they didn't even care about it, but it was like
it's non-binding, right?
Yeah, but it had like 70% of the population vote against same-sex marriage, which is kind of shocking because Taiwan is often viewed in the gay world as like this, like the gay paradise of like Asia, but like
Taipei Pride, right, is sort of viewed as like a destination to go to for gays and all over the world.
But, like, when you look at other countries that are demonized for their gay records, like Russia, like, 75% of the population opposes, like, homosexuality. So, there's probably, like, a small differential, but, like, that's still a large similarity. But why is one depicted that way, and one is like viewed as like good and one is bad.
Yeah, it's not different in kind, right? I mean, it's to say that you have a majority, even with polling, a simple majority, even with any sort of polling error, who do not believe that these rights should be conferred to the LGBT community, and we're sort of happy to celebrate this as a win, and it was a judicial win, as it was in the U.S. and most of the U.S.
But I did see a lot of friends went there from the Bay Area, and one of the things I kind of noticed on Instagram is there's a lot of Asians and then like white people, and like occasionally I would feel like, oh, they're attractive, and like, 'cause it's Instagram, like you like, oh, who is this person? And I would keep clicking on their profiles, and they're like just rice queens. They're always with other Asians, like in like sexual, like, or not sexual, like sexy like actions, and like they're all obsessed with like Hong Kong and Taiwan, and it kind of just like made me realize I think there's some kind of questionable politics from rice queens. Which,
so for our straight listeners, do you want to explain what a rice queen is?
So a rice queen is a white person who is like singularly obsessed or like sexually attracted to people of primarily East Asian like background. So it's like,
it's not a great term.
No, I mean, it's very objectifying.
To be clear, the term is sort of well established, but it's not. We make no apologies for the term. It is. It's not a good term. But it's a very real thing, and I think it sort of borders somewhere between like the conversation of my particular attraction is towards people who are tall, say. You can sort of start that way, but then it turns into something pretty fetishistic when you start talking about like the sexual politics of what does it mean to be an Asian person in the West, say, and to sort of turn it into a like, I'm only attracted to these people, and under no circumstances will I talk to anybody else. There's something a little weird about it.
But I found the most interesting thing was the hyper focus on Asian politics, while many of them have like nothing talking about like politics in their own country, which is usually like the U.S. And it's often very tied into like xenophobic rhetoric, which is like anti-China favor, like even like Vietnam or like any other country besides like Taiwan and Hong Kong, which are viewed as like bastions of like democracy and freedom, despite the reality they're like capitalist hellholes. Like Hong Kong is one of the worst housing crises in the world. Like I think it's worse than San Francisco.
Yeah. And
they're totally ignorant on that. And the reality is the protests in Hong Kong and stuff aren't material in any condition. They're like, why is it an anti-extradition bill? Like that's weird. Like every other country that's fighting against their governments is focused on like austerity and neoliberalism, but this is not.
Well, yeah, Singapore also, right, tends to get a weird pass in this front because they are ultra-capitalist and kind of embrace a version of politics which, if you were, say, a well-heeled San Franciscan, to pick a random example, who could afford to take 2 trips a year to Asia to essentially do sex tourism, you might have a class interest that aligns somewhat more closely with that of, say, the Singaporean government or the King of Thailand or the Hong Kong government, right? It's sort of it's not any platonic ideal people are appealing to of what freedom means.
And I think a lot of it's really paternalistic, kind of chauvinistic, in the fact these people often go to the countries they so often push neocon rhetoric in, and often will just completely ignore the viewpoints of these people they're having like sex with or like attraction to about the own countries they actually live in. Like, you would think the person who actually lives in these countries' viewpoint would matter more, but often it's like, oh no, everything you're told is like propaganda and a lie, And the reality is, I'm going to tell you what's really going on in your country. And it's like...
Google Tiananmen Square.
Like, it's very problematic. And it kind of, like, feeds into, like, this, like, white knight behavior. But, like, in, like, a fetishistic manner.
Literally white knight, really.
Literally. But it's like no rice queen is like a leftist. Like they're almost always like tied into like the neoliberal order. Like I've never met like someone who's like actually of the like radical like socialist left and is like fetishistic about a single race. Maybe I'm wrong. There could be, but like
I'm sure there. I mean, yeah, maybe there is, but certainly, I always have to give a bit of awkward side eye to anybody who says I'm not attracted to insert sort of general category here, as opposed to like, you know, I feel like if you're sort of decomposing attraction into its parts, it's about like you're attracted to an individual, surely, and like. Yeah, it may be that if you're drawing sort of statistical inferences based on like, well, generally speaking, I'm not attracted to people who are blonde or whatever. It's like, well, oh yeah, that's a little weird and a little trite, but okay. Like, why frame in those terms? I mean, you are not being asked to fuck every Asian person in the world. You know, but is there one person standing in front of you who you think is attractive who happens to have the wrong haplogroup? I mean, are you going to say no? I shall not be attracted to you. I checked your chromosomes.
They have to measure the skulls before they can have actual attraction to them. They're like, oh, let's make sure the phonology is proper before I say I'm only attracted to you.
And it is kind of the flip side to any reductionist argument about attraction, right? To say, people who get very worked up about the idea of like, is it transphobic to have a, quote unquote genital preference? Well, it's almost the wrong argument. It's like, are you attracted to this person? And that people come as a complete package in some sense.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see someone's genitals when you have attraction. Just like you might not instantly know what the race of someone is. Because for one, race is a social construction. But like, there's many people who are like racially ambiguous. So like,
right, if you
are
found
you going to
out...
decide if they're not Asian or Latino or whatever, you're not going to be attracted to them anymore because that's just...
Yeah, it's suddenly a turnoff just because I discovered I misrepresented your parentage or something in my mind.
Like even people who are like mixed, many people who are like fetishistic about a singular race will avoid the mixed people because they're not like the right look or kind of like the proper looking Asian. Like it's very like
there's some race science,
like,
right? Totally. It is eugenics. So sexual eugenics bad. It's our official position. Just find people attractive on their merits. If they're standing in front of you and you decide you like the look of them, maybe don't run a 23andMe kit first. Just enjoy.
But also, it's like the focus of Taiwan is so often just to use compared to China, where there's not gay marriage, but like a Pew Research poll showed like only like 50% disagreed with homosexuality, which is like half and half. That's actually pretty good. But also, none of the rest of Asia has gay marriage because they've been focused on like colonialism and like industrializing and stuff like. But also, countries like South Korea have a lot of, like, homophobia and stuff. Like, why the fixation on the one country, the U.S., has a goal to end, but, like, not the other countries.
Well, in other scary news, because I think war with China is a scary thought for Halloween.
It's not sexy, but it's scary.
But there's another one, right, where there was the case of a 15-year-old girl who was abducted, I believe.
So she went missing. Yeah, they didn't say exactly in the article how she disappeared, but her mother found her. On Pornhub in like 50 plus videos, having sex with like two different gentlemen. I think one of them was like 30, and it kind of brought up the question of, like, how did this happen? And, like, what is the role of, like, trafficking and, like, exploitation in the porn industry?
Well, yeah, so this was Florida, and
Of course it's Florida.
of course it does. Yeah, so it said apart from the well-known adult site, the explicit content also appeared on sites like Periscope, Model Hub, Snapchat, and other websites. And they have arrested the bald man, who's one of two men who she was seen the last time she was spotted.
Yeah.
And there's video footage, I guess, on the sites of this 30-year-old guy having sex with this 15-year-old girl. There's going to be statutory rape, I think, in this case.
Yeah, in Florida.
He has been charged, I believe, with various kinds of sexual battery. I think it's not a rape charge, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But it does sort of lead us into the interesting position about like in some other circumstance, right? In terms of consensual sex work, this would be kind of a non-issue, and the narrative of like this is an abduction, is being pushed, particularly in this front. I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody knows. It has not been reported which one it is. But the culpability of Pornhub, I think, became a central focus of this. Like, this is a porn site profiting from what is seen as the exploitation of a minor in this case.
But yeah, it kind of like just brought up a lot of takes that I found were very unnuanced and problematic from people all across the aisle. I mean, clearly there's the conservative right where it's all premarital sex and porn and stuff is just bad and Pornhub's
at the mouth.
Evil. But then you get people like on the liberal side being like, oh, this is just an exception. Porn is like just like every other thing, and work is good, and just like completely like romanticizing a lot of the porn industry and like sex work industry. And then I've seen a lot of like socialist left-wing takes that kind of are missing some class analysis. And I have a few tweets that kind of photographed of takes on this, which I can just
lay them on us.
I mean, I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want people to like be dicks to them, but one of basically said, stop supporting an industry that abuses young women and girls. Stop supporting this website and the many others that profit from the continued and active dehumanization of women and people of color. And basically, from my understanding, like, yes, there is misogyny in sex work, just like there's misogyny in numerous other industries like retail and stuff, where catcalling and body grabbing is all part of the take.
Try being a lawyer or something. I'm sure there's a lot of misogyny there.
My issue was the emphasis on just women and people of color, which, yes, that's part of the industry, but if you're a true socialist, you should just say workers. Like, the whole thing, like, there's many LGBTQ workers, many of whom are doing it as survival mechanisms. Like, if you look at Eastern Europe, where, like, porn studios like Bellamy are produced, many of them do it because it's the only well-paying job, and they're doing it because the color revolutions across Eastern Europe destroyed the economy and made mass unemployment. So all these young, attractive men, many of whom are straight, have to go prostitute and do porn. Same as in like Southeast Asia, where many rural villager men and women have to go and support their families and go to Bangkok and often under age of 18, sell their bodies for sex.
Yeah, I mean, I ended up having a pretty lengthy discussion last night on Twitter with a few folks, one of whom was Amy Therese, who is always worth a follow on Twitter, but she gets a lot of hate. But for basically doing Marxism online, which is the only crime worth punishing. But I did think what sort of came up right is that the statements that people tend to conflate around this are, there's a slogan, right? Sex work is work. Which is meant, I think, under a sort of capitalist system, right, where we have to work in order to not starve to death, right? That sex work is work under that framework could sound like a rallying cry for the humane and dignified treatment of sex workers. I think, which, I personally am in favor of.
Yes.
And of course, right? Like, but it's actually very different from the statement that like, all work should be dignified and most jobs are not under capitalism, right? In fact, like exploitation as a mechanism is a like kind of key and integral to the functioning of capitalism. So there's a certain kind of take that people have where they're trying to do analysis and they kind of fail at the pass because they're trying to say that to say sex workers' work is a complete answer to the charge that it could still be exploitative, like all other jobs are exploitative. It's not saying quit the sex work because we should make it illegal and instead work in a call center or something that is clearly going to be exploitative in almost the same way.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean to say that there's not a huge amount of dehumanizing aspects to sex work and many jobs. I mean, all jobs should be dignified, but they're not. Like, they are not in the world we live in.
No.
So I think people get it mixed up to say, you'll hear leftists have the take to say, or it's often taken as like a tanky take, right? To say like, sex work is bad and exploitative. Was like, yeah, that's true, but it's actually that you could say that about most jobs. Yeah. Sadly, most jobs are bad and exploitative, and they should not be. But also the abolition of sort of capitalism would be a prerequisite to fixing that.
I mean, the whole line "sex work is work" doesn't really tell you anything other than yes, you're a worker, but it doesn't tell you about the structures that force you into certain careers. And we know from studies, especially like countries that have undergone like more like left-wing revolutions or party takeovers, when they create systems that allow basic needs to be met, the number of sex work drops. Like, clearly many people don't want to do that and would rather do other things. And that doesn't mean everyone who does sex work doesn't want to be there. There's clearly people who do, and I've met many who enjoy what they do. But I think many on the like libertarian right and like liberal like camps paint it as that's the majority, and that's just really not the case, especially when you look in countries where neoliberal austerity have really destroyed the economy. In Eastern Europe, Southern Asia, Africa, Latin America are huge sex tourism hotspots, and it's often the poorest populations being like pimped out. I mean, pimps are bosses. Like, we don't think about it that way, but a pimp is a boss for a sex worker, and we have a very big stigma against pimps, but we don't have the stigma against bosses, but they're basically the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, and it's the point that it's obscuring the power dynamic that exists, and I feel like people retreat to certain abstractions and extremes to say a college-educated woman who's doing niche cam performances or something online and earning great money doing work that she happens to find sort of sexually empowering and liberating, right, is sort of being treated as the same category as somebody who has never had an easy life, who's doing street prostitution and being physically abused, right? As a matter of course. These are not equivalent acts of sex work, even though they are both sex work writ large. Yeah. So I think the lack of nuance in these conversations tends to obscure the fact that like there's a shit ton of really bad stuff that goes on in this industry. Yeah. And there's some stuff which is fine, and being heavy-handed or absolutist about it is not really getting to the root of the issue, which is say, let's address first the stuff that's really bad and try and prevent the structural conditions that would make that necessary for somebody to not starve to death. Yeah, and that's where I think both have problems when it comes to solutions to these issues, is so often many on the left tend to be against decriminalization, especially like the more like Marxist-Leninist left are against that, despite decriminalization being the only option to like actually have the framework to build up unions and like labor rights. If your work is illegal, you don't have an ability to have organization and labor. But then you have the libertarian side, and they have no option for anyone who doesn't want to do this form of labor to have
an alternative option. I mean, I think the Bernie Sanders option of a job for all, like, is a great option to leave an industry if that's truly something that's not positive for you. I mean, as well, like, basic living standards being universal for all, like housing, education, healthcare. Like, for many, this is not the job they want to do, and if we can allow people to avoid that, I think that's the proper solution. Right?
Yeah, and so in terms of prostituting yourself, Julian Castro today released a TikTok video, which I think was debasing, degrading, just awful.
It was so funny, but not in like he was actually funny, but like how humiliating it was.
Yeah, this is the new politics is sort of, I think Hillary dabbing on Ellen was sort of the precipitating event, and now every candidate has to do something utterly humiliating.
Yeah. I mean, you have Elizabeth Warren being like, I've taken 70,000 selfies. And then you have Andrew Yang singing like, what the fuck?
Don't you forget about me.
Don't you forget about me at one of his like fundraising like events.
Yeah, bad
like,
karaoke. And then Julian Castro doing just an absolutely debasing
TikTok.
TikTok video.
And if you're not familiar with TikTok, it's the largest like short video app right now. Think of like Vine, but like more modernized and like
still running.
Yeah, still running. And basically, Pink News and The Advocate and stuff have been spreading this very similar article about how TikTok was exposed to be blocking LGBTQ content in Turkey because it doesn't fit with the moral standards of the country, which is really seen like a large Wahhabi right-wing Islamist shift from a country that was more of like liberal-ish. I mean, it had like gay movement, but now it's like whenever you have pride, you have like protesters being like gassed and stuff like that.
Well, and homosexuality is still not illegal in Turkey.
Yeah,
this is a sort of weird like moral disapproval expressed through social media, as far as I can tell. And they've backpedaled from this position, I believe, right?
So they recently shifted over. So now the policy is local moderators to subjectively censor content. So that could include queer content, but it'll be very like up to like local authorities. And I think the take of this being like outrage towards TikTok is kind of just hilarious because it's been going on for so many other social media sites. I mean, YouTube's been demonetizing and rating like LGBT videos and stuff as like explicit on YouTube. Same for like other things. I mean, Tumblr is another good example.
Tumblr removing, of course, all the porn.
Yeah,
right?
and they got rid of a lot of LGBTQ content, which wasn't porn.
Yep. Twitter is a little more like tolerant, but not actually, right?
No.
Twitter bans plenty of people for explicit content, and Facebook recently had a thing, I think, with clarifying the use of the peach and eggplant emojis.
Really?
Where you cannot, apparently this has always been their policy, but they updated their terms of use to say something about like you can't reference sexual preferences or states of arousal. So you can't say you're sort of a horny bottom using emojis, basically is what they're saying. So you can't use the horny emoji, the devil horns, and you can't use the peach or eggplant emojis to indicate your sexual interest in solving your state of arousal. So this is universal. TikTok is a very large Chinese company.
Yeah, and they make sure it's a Chinese company in this article.
Yes,
which I just find you would never mention like YouTube or Google as like, oh, American company Google, but for this one, it's like emphasized the Chinese company to imply that China has like an explicit bias against gay people. But the reality is all corporations care about one thing, and that's general profits, and will abide by any country's rules as to make it so they can have net growth in that region.
Yeah, so I mean, TikTok is not alone in this, but
Yeah.
they do seem to be held up to special scrutiny because they may have behaved shittily. Honestly, it might be. I wouldn't say uniquely shitty, but it might just be the latest instance of like, yep, you're too gay for our profit margins in this region, and therefore we will sort of gleefully engage in corporate censorship because it's most profitable to do so, or it will guarantee our continued operation in this region, which seems to be what they've done in Turkey. It is sort of in step with whatever sort of emergent political movements are going on there, but it is they show no spine because having a spine is not profitable.
Yeah, I mean they've also restricted drinking alcohol, showing non-Muslim statues. They've also restricted any criticism of Erdogan or posts promoting Kurdish separatism. I mean, the same thing applies to numerous countries across the world. And I mean, in many, probably it's not even legal, I would assume. Like, it's probably not even legal in many countries. So it's just like, this is the fact of the reality. I mean, they do imply that, this could be happening in other countries, but we have no, like, proven evidence of what the, like, rules look like in other countries. So it probably is the case, but to imply it's exactly the same in all these other countries, we don't know that, so we can't speculate on what's been going on.
Yeah, so this is LGBTQnation.com, which is among the LGBT press, which Pete Buttigieg is not reading anymore.
Yeah.
So, good on them. Their hard-hitting journalism fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Well, so we've only got one more thing for you today, and that's, because it's Halloween, we set out to try and find you a short gay erotica story that we could, that was going to be scary. Yeah. Some horror genre gay erotica that we could share with you. Turns out to be really difficult to find anything that is both short, gay, and erotic.
Yeah.
And I think we managed to find the worst story ever. And Sam has not seen this story.
No, I haven't heard it yet, so I'm new as
put a lot of effort into finding this. And so we're going to read it, and then we'll talk you through maybe some of the issues it raises. So this one's called Dead Men's Desire, and it was authored in 2008 by Spank Those Butts at AOL.com. This is from the nifty.org archive of gay erotica. I found myself wandering around this huge mausoleum all alone, the vast caverns totally silent except for my footsteps. Dim lights and votive candles flickered, and I was wondering what I was doing here all alone so late at night, gazing at the names of deceased men, one each wall vault. Suddenly, without warning, I heard a gruff male voice from somewhere nearby, mutter with an evil chuckle. You're so fucking sexy, stud. Even dead guys want a piece of that hot, tight little ass of yours. What the fuck? I thought. Suddenly, without warning. Again, suddenly without warning. I think the warning actually happened. I heard distinct rumbling noises, and then I stood rooted to the spot, unable to move, as suddenly all of the nearby vaults that bore the name of a man started to open, the marble clattering loudly to the floor as it fractured. What the fuck? I shouted. Oh, again. As I watched spellbound as coffin after coffin began sliding out of the wall vaults. Then, as I heard this weird organ music begin to play from somewhere far down the corridor, there's an organ, I stood both horrified and sexually excited as one by one the coffins began to pop open, and the bodies of men long since deceased began rising up, their clothing moldy, dusty, and tattered. What the hell is this? I whispered to myself. Michael Jackson's Thriller? Ooh. Zing.
Oh my God.
How are you enjoying this so far, Sam?
Oh,
are you
intrigued?
It. Yeah, okay, right. Still unable to move, all these male corpses shuffling towards me, most wearing suits and ties, but some wearing police chief and fire captain uniforms. There was even an army general among them. Are you starting to see why I picked this one? Yeah, see? Sexy. Then I noticed that each and every one of these dead guys had big bulges in the crotches of their worn, moldy trousers, and were rubbing them with skeletal hands as they grinned menacingly at me. Sexy. And again, suddenly without warning, I think the warning has been issued. But suddenly without warning, I saw every one of these dead dudes grasping something in their clammy paws. Some clutched a piece of splintered wood from their casket. Others grasped the metal crucifix that they had, until just a little while ago, had been grasping while reposing in their boxes. The grammar of this is wild. Now surrounded by these highly aroused deceased men, the nearest one, who was obviously built like a linebacker when he was alive, reached out and grabbed me by the sleeve of my suit jacket. And then, as he sat down on a marble bench, proceeded to haul me across his lap, and then started spanking my upturned ass with a splintered piece of wood. Ooh. Spooky. The other dead guys all started chuckling with a truly evil, sinister sound, and continued to rub their hefty bulges in their decaying trousers as this hulking, long-dead gent wearing a dark blue pinstripe suit thrashed my little round butt, and through the seat of my tight suit pants. Oh, okay, the protagonist is wearing a suit.
Oh, lots of suits in a story.
It is. So fierce were his blows that the piece of splintered wood started tearing away the seat of my suit pants, and then started to shred the tight seat of my sweaty red-striped boxers. My imprisoned cock was leaking lube like a faucet as I humped this dead fellow's bony thigh through his moldy, time-worn suit pants. Man, my ass was fucking stinging like hell. All right, we're on the home stretch here. I promise. What are your thoughts initially, Sam?
I'll give it to you after they finish the story.
Well, like the bony, mold-worn hands of this linebacker gentleman. But this was only a warm-up, as in the blink of an eye, I found myself across the lap of a long-dead police chief who brandished a tarnished crucifix in what was left of his big, gnarled hands. It was as though that crucifix was charged with at least 10,000 volts, for the cool air was soon filled with the strong, acrid scent of scorched cloth, as the seat of my shorts burned away. Wait, I thought these were already gone. Never mind. Now my bare, twinky ass was really vulnerable, and was, by this time, really blistered and sore. In a flash, the dead police chief vanished, and now I was across 2 laps. The lap of a tall, lanky ghoul who was wearing a dusty, once brown pinstripe suit. And the lap of a Catholic priest who was still built like a bull. There's a lot of random capitalization in this story, I should point out. My emphasis is not my own. The sounds of tarnished metal and splintered wood made harsh, cracking sounds as those now awakened, angry, and horny deceased men walloped the hell out of my smoldering ass. Oh my. Then once again I heard the evil but also sexy voice growl, "Dead men may tell no tales, but it's your tale we want, my friend."
Oh my god.
Good line. Yeah. That's actually a pickup line of mine. Oh god. I didn't actually read this far in the story. A large movie screen suddenly materialized out of nowhere and was positioned right in front of me without warning. I felt my tight, hairless arsehole being ripped open, and I could see that the old army general, his tarnished metals glinting in the dim light, still looking sexy as hell, even after being dead for 50 years, and then a series of 7 exclamation points. Then I felt the general's skeletal hand reach around to unzip my fly, proceeding to reach into my soaked boxers. I thought those were burned. They're still there, apparently.
He has a lot of boxers on.
A lot of boxers, like 8 pairs of boxers. And haul out my massive, aching, drooling fuck stick.
Wow.
Yes. Oh shit. The deceased general started plowing my quivering ass like a madman. Obviously pretty damned horny after not getting any male tail in so many decades. I gazed into the big screen in front of me and watched myself getting royally screwed by a long line of male ghouls. Businessmen, cops, firemen, army guys, priests, ministers, railroad conductors. Damn, these long slumbering dudes were really hot for some tight male ass. And as each one continued to batter my humming prostate to a pulp, he's reaching around and wanking my aching cock with his skeletal hand. Oh god, it just gets... Okay. Finally, as the mournful organ music played even louder, the organ is still playing, just in case I was missing that, my overloaded balls could no longer hold back. oh, this is phonetically rendered as, oh, fucking Christ, oh, fuck yeah, you fucking ghoul, tear up my living ass with that big dead dick of yours. My huge dong exploded as the clammy, bony hand of a railroad conductor, still wearing his brass-button uniform, brought me to my peak, coating his pumping hand with scalding jets of thick, hot, executive jizz.
Wow.
Yes, and that is the end of Dead Men's Desire.
Well, for one, I am very surprised that these bodies are still together after like 50 plus years.
They're still functioning.
I mean, pinstripe suits, those are quite dated.
Yes.
But I did find really interesting the emphasis of like men in like pinstripe suits, which I kind of associate with like a higher wealth class, as well as like army generals and police and priests. Maybe it's representation of like the groups in society that are imposing this system on the poor twink working class.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what this poor hapless twink was doing in a graveyard late at night, but it did seem to me that it was kind of lightly plagiarized from They Live, in terms of like it is the sort of the moneyed classes and the powerful in society victimizing and exploiting this poor hapless protagonist. I did think the railroad conductor was an interesting addition there, because that's a worker. I mean, a railroad conductor, good union job.
Yeah.
I thought very out of step with the priest, the general, the cop. Firefighters, fine. As we said in the costumes section, I mean, good.
I feel like the railroad conductor was just kind of thrown in there. It's like, oh, let's name another job.
It did feel incongruous, didn't it? Yeah.
It was not relevant until the very end, and I've only taken one creative writing class in my college career, and usually you only add things to stories because they're relevant. That felt very irrelevant to the whole story.
Yeah, I didn't, and sort of Chekhov's crucifix. I think the crucifix didn't really figure into this, did it?
Yeah, I was assuming like the crucifixes and like broken like pieces of wood were going to be used to like sodomize or something.
No,
like,
just paddling. Apparently, a little bit of light spanking play.
I'm so disappointed. I was hoping for some like rough anal play in the story.
Yeah, no, I think also the crucifix was electrified and burned away the first or second pair of boxer shorts.
Well, see, there were a lot of fucking clothes in this story.
It was layers.
Like, was it cold outside? Like,
I mean, yeah, it's a graveyard in October, I guess. Yeah, so it must be freezing.
Where's some thermals? Like,
So anyway, this was after doing a lot of searching, and I did find some other stories that I actually thought were much better, but they were way too long to share on the podcast. So we have a bunch of new Twink Revolution merchandise, which is not available for sale
yet.
But you have 2 days before Halloween. This is Tuesday, going up on Tuesday night. So if you want to submit the shortest story you can that is gay erotic horror, we will run a little contest which will end at midnight Halloween anywhere in the world. So what's the last time zone? It's like Samo or something. GMT plus 13. But midnight and Halloween anywhere in the world. If you can submit us anything, any piece of writing that you think matches the expectation of gay horror erotica, then we will select a winner according to our internal criteria. Mm-hmm. And the winner will receive some Twink Revolution swag, maybe an attractive T-shirt and some stickers and shit like that.
Yes.
So you can email it to us, twinkrevolution@gmail.com, or you can just like DM us on Twitter or something.
Yeah.
TwinkRev. Or you can Instagram us. We'll take other kinds of creative media as well. You can send us a really spooky Instagram shot or something as well.
Yeah.
But it has to be erotic.
Yeah. And gay.
And gay.
And spooky.
Yeah, we'll take any definition of gay as well.
Yeah.
It can be gay in the pejorative sense if you want as well. We don't really care.
Yeah, like happy.
Yeah, and with that, that is our show.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Have a good spooky season, and hope you all get some.
Yeah,
get it.
Remember to get your problematic costumes on. It'll be great.
I want some stereotypical Dora the Explorer costumes out there. Do it for me. Okay, bye.
Bye.